Hello and welcome. My name is Tyler. I'm going to try something new today. I haven't done coding videos before, but that's what I've been doing. Today what we're going to be looking at is we are going to be using Tweepy, which is a Python Twitter API, and we're going to be using GPT-2, which is a text generation model that's pre-trained. We're going to be using transfer learning. And we're going to write an AI bot that learns off of Twitter subjects and then spits out tweets on trending topics. Let's get into it. All right, so here's the finished product running live on Twitter. It's tweeting about Mueller. It's tweeting about Donald Trump. It's tweeting about relevant things, obviously. So this bot itself is actually running up on AWS. I've got it in a tmux window so that it doesn't close if my session breaks off, and we're going to go through everything that's going on here and get our own up and running here. Disconnect. All right, so I've got an empty project here. Let's go ahead and create some new folders here. SRC for all my code. I don't want that there. I want it here. And data. Cool. In my SRC folder. So the first thing we want to do is we want to go to Twitter and we want to get the current trending topics off of Twitter. So we're going to need our Twitter credentials. Okay. So if you have not already, go ahead and go sign up for the Twitter API. In order to do that, you go to developer.twitter.com and make sure you're signed into the correct account, and then you're going to go through the process to create an app. Once you've created an app, these are going to be the pieces of information that you're after, and make sure that when you're prompted that you tell it that you would like to be able to tweet from this app. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and drop into this Twitter credentials file. We're going to create an access token. An access token secret. A consumer key. And a consumer secret. So I'm going to go ahead and copy these all. Okay, now we have our Twitter credentials inputted. We're going to close that out, go back to our source directory and make a new file. And this is going to be our Twitter, caps off, Twitter AI bot. So we're going to write everything just in straight Python, and we're just going to run it in the terminal is going to be our plan. That's how we deployed it here on AWS. So we're just going to operate with that as our norm. So I've gone ahead and I've already done Pip Install Tweepy. If you haven't done that already, you'll need to do that. So from Tweepy import and from Tweepy. So yeah, let's look at that too. Yeah, here it is. So the Tweepy documentation, docs.tweepy.org, goes through everything that you need in order to be able to log in, but I've already done that. So let's take a look here. We're going to need our Auth handler. We're going to need our cursor, and we're going to need the API. And then we're going to go ahead and say import Twitter credentials as TC. Cool. So now we're going to go ahead and set up our Twitter credentials and make sure that that works, that we are successfully talking to the Twitter API. So we need to set up this Auth object first. And so we're going to do that with the OAuth handler. We're going to pass it the Twitter credentials.consumer key and Twitter credentials.consumer secret that we just entered. And then we're going to go ahead and say auth and call the function set access token. And then this is where we're going to pass in those other set of keys. So tc.access token and tc.access token secret. All right, and then we want to go ahead and set up our API, and that is going to be with our API object. and we are just going to pass that auth. And then I am actually going to, I'm going to pass in some extra parameters here that are going to come in later. Namely, that's going to be wait on rate limit. I'm going to set that to true. And then I'm going to say wait on rate limit notify. I want it to spit out into the terminal if we're currently waiting on our rate limit. We want to know that. Okay. So we're gonna define a function here that is just going to go ahead and get trending tweets. And then we're going to go ahead and call that and make sure that we are connected. Let me look at my notes. Okay, so we're going to call this get trending. We're not going to pass any parameters into it. I'm going to say the trends equals API dot trends by place. There's a couple different versions of this. We want to go by place, and I've already sussed out which ID to pass it, which is going to be this code right here. This should be for all of US. These are weird. They're weird codes. It's not like location. It's funky. Trust me though, that works. Okay, trending. So we're gonna do an accumulator here. We're gonna loop through these. We're gonna loop through the dictionary that's returned, and we're going to add everything to that dictionary, and then we're gonna return that dictionary. So for trend in trends, as I was for trend in trends, if I printed this object, you would see that it is a dictionary, and yeah, this is where to go in the dictionary, but we're just going to skip walking through that. You'll just have to take my word for it. So we're going to want to say trending dot append, and then append the trend, and then return. Okay, so that should be all we need there. We're going to go ahead and do a if name equals main. So this will run for sure, and we'll just call get trending. And then let's actually print the results of that. Okay, cool. Okay, change directory into our source and go ahead and just run it. Python 3, Twitter, AI. Cool. So this is good news. It means it is printing, it is giving us the results. We're not getting any failures or anything. We are successfully getting, we're getting the dictionary. Okay. So what we actually want to do is we want to append trend name. Okay, let's see if that worked. There you go. So there's all our names: Goya, Notre Dame, Big Ten, Home Depot, TikTok, blah, blah, blah. I know TikTok's down right now, so that's why everybody's paying attention to that. Okay, so the next step is going to be to import our GPT-2. This is a very powerful text training model. There's a lot of documentation and information on it. They just released GPT-3. And so GPT-2 actually only works with up to TensorFlow 1.13.1, I believe. And so we're going to have to deal with that. And I'm going to get a virtual environment configured as well to help us do that, to help us run it without any errors. But let's just go ahead and see if it imports. Import GPT-2, which also this is all in the documentation as well. You do need to do a pip install if you haven't done that yet, but we're going to have to do that in the virtual environment as well anyway, so we'll walk through that when we get there. So let's go ahead and let's see if this runs. Yeah. Okay, eventually the GPT-2 is going to give us an error, but we're just going to keep going, and when we run into that error, we will handle it. So right out of the documentation here, we're going to go ahead, we need to download our model. So we're just going to copy this right out of the documentation, and we're going to run it right in line after all of our other imports and setup statements. And we're going to go ahead and use the 355 model, which is it's the medium size model. So right here I don't have OS installed, so let's go ahead and take care of that. Import OS. Okay. All right, and this is going to take a second to download, but let's just go ahead and make sure it is going to download. Okay, so our model went ahead and downloaded. Actually, let's just get rid of this. Ah. Okay, so now we need to take the trending topics. Our main function that's going to run is going to pick just one out of this list that it's generated. And then we need to go to Twitter and search for as many tweets as we want to grab on just that subject. So we need to define a new function here, which is going to be get topic tweets. So we're going to be getting tweets by a topic. And so we're going to pass in the topic that we need, and then we're going to pass in the max tweets that we want it to get. We'll set that to a default of 100, which is not that many. The higher we set that, we'll see that it starts to hit the rate limit. And so that's where these are going to come in. When we start passing in, then we want 1,000 or 2,000 or 5,000 or 10,000 tweets, then it's going to run into that rate limit, and it's automatically going to go back around the loop until it gets the answer, until it gets all the tweets we've requested. So what we need to do next inside our function, we need to, we're going to use our cursor here in order to do our search. So we're going to catch all this on a variable. And then we're going to use our cursor. We pass that API.search. And then our query. So for the query, we're going to pass the topic. And I've gone one step above that. If you go to the Twitter documentation, there are quite a few options on how to filter your tweets. If you wanted things like positive sentiment, negative sentiment, minus certain words. And in this case, we're going to do getting rid of retweets. We only want original tweets. We want original text from people. So we're going to do minus filter. So that should get rid of the retweets for us. Okay. So then, just for redundancy, we're going to make sure that the language is consistent, that it's all English. And then we are going to say that tweet mode is extended. This way it won't truncate any long tweets. It will it'll give it to us as full text. We'll have the full text on all of them. So not index, sorry, items. And then this is where we pass in the max tweets. Okay, now I know that I'm going to put this inside of a list just because that's how I did it. I think I got it out of the documentation that way. So I'm just going to be consistent with working off of my notes here. So that should then pass a list into that searched tweets object. And we are then going to do the same thing where we are going to accumulate them, and we're going to use a try catch statement in order to validate that we actually have a full text, because every now and then we will get a tweet that does not have the full text on it for some reason. Rather than debugging Tweepy, I'd rather just write code that works. So let's see, for tweet in searched tweets. So we're going to go ahead and try to found tweets.append tweet.full text. So that'll drill in to get the full text object off of that, which is what we asked for when we said extended. And if it doesn't exist, we're just going to pass. We don't care. Okay, and then once we're done, return found tweets. All right, and now we're going to be ready to start writing the main function that we're going to be looping through to generate a single trending tweet so that we can have our bot tweet just one generated tweet. So we're just going to call that def generated trending tweet. We don't need to pass any arguments because it's just going to do this for us. We're going to call this over and over again. So let's go ahead and first of all, let's write some comments in here to remind us what we're doing and what order we're doing it in. So let's say first thing that we're going to do is pick a topic, and then we are going to fetch tweets on topic, and then we are going to train a model on new tweets, and then we are going to generate a text with the new model, and then we are going to filter and return one valid tweet from generated text. Okay, so we have a lot to get done here in this function. Let's get started. First thing is going to be picking a topic. So we're just going to go ahead and call that getTrending function, and we're going to return it, return that list to a variable. So trending equals getTrending, and that's going to give us a list of trending topics. And then we're going to say topic equals choice of from trending. So that's just going to pick one out of that list. And I don't know if I said it before, but go ahead and import choice from random in order to be able to do that. And then we're going to say our topic. Let's see here. We're going to print because we want to know what topic we picked. Generating. Can't spell right now. Generating tweets on topic and topic. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is we need to fetch those using our other function, and then we need to write them to a file that we can feed into our model for it to train on. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to define a file name of where we want to save those tweets. So we're going to call it file name, and we're just going to call the path to the file. So from where we are, we're going to go up, we're going to go over to data, we're going to have our folder topic tweets. Actually, we don't want to do that. We're just going to do it right there in our data folder. So then we're going to add our topic, and we're going to add to that the .txt extension. So that is going to be where we're going to store the file that gathers all of our tweets. So the topical tweets that our function returns will be caught here. We're just going to call our getTopicTweets. We're going to pass it our topic. And for learning purposes, we are just going to put 10 in here because we don't want to get caught up on that rate limit. Normally I would put something more like 2000 for the running bot, but just for training purposes, we're going to have that there. So, and then we're going to say that the string that we're going to save to the file, we'll call that tweet string. And what we need to do here is we're going to get back, you remember from that function, we're going to get back a list of tweets. And so we want to join them into a single string that we can write to our text file. But we also want the AI to be able to learn how to break the tweets up. So we're going to add some filler text here, which is going to be this. So later on, we'll split on that text, and that will separate our tweets in code. So we'll join the list here from our topical tweets, and that will create the string that we need to write to file. So let's go ahead and write that to file. So with open file name, which is why we define that file name, And here we're going to say we want to write. So this way it will always overwrite the file. If their file already exists, it'll overwrite it. If it doesn't exist, it will create it. So as file, and then we're going to say f.write, and we're just going to pass this the tweet string. So now we should have our file created. We can test that, but I know it works, so I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to keep charging forward in what we're doing here. So the next thing we need to do is we're going to start playing with our GPT-2. We're going to train a new model, excuse me. And first thing we need to do is we need to establish a TensorFlow session. So this is right out of the documentation, which I don't remember. There it is. So first thing we need to do is we need to establish a session, then we can do our fine tune, and then we can do our generate. So we're going to go ahead and say session, SESS, equals GPT2 dot start TF session. Cool. So the next thing is, if we already have a checkpoint for this topic, we want to continue to train the same model on that checkpoint. If we do not, then we want to start a fresh model for that checkpoint. So if not os.path.exists, and in here we're going to say checkpoint, because this is where it's going to save it, right here in this checkpoint folder. Checkpoint / topic. So this is saying if the topic doesn't exist, if we have not trained a model on this, start a new model. If you have, then go ahead and train over, update the existing model basically. So GPT-2, this is where we're going to start doing our fine tuning. Fine tune. So we have a bunch of stuff to pass in here. First of all, you have to pass it the session, you have to pass it your data set, and that is going to be the file that we just created. And then we're going to pass it the model name, which is the model name that we downloaded above. You remember the 355 model that we created? That is the model we wanted to use. So we're going to define steps, and I'm going to just set this to 2 for now. On the deployed one, I would use a larger number, but just for training purposes, just to show you guys so that it'll run quickly, we're going to set that to 2. Restore from, and we're going to tell it to restore from fresh for this one. And then we're going to say run name, and this is important because this, just topic. This is important because this is how it saves the checkpoint. So now it's going to save the checkpoint by that topic name, which means that this will be what it will save. So that'll make sure that our check will work and we will find an existing one. Last thing to enter in here, I want to say print every, and I want to see everyone because I want to know that it's running. Cool. Next thing to do is to copy this down. And the only change we're making in the second one, because it's going to be loading from the old one, is we're going to tell it to restore from latest. And this will allow it to load the existing model and train it further. And I would do fewer, because we've already trained it. I would do fewer steps on this. On the live one, it does 100, I think, 200 to start, and then 100 to retrain the existing model. So that should go ahead and train up our model. So the next step is to generate tweets. So the way that we're going to do this is we're going to use a GPT-2 function called generate to file. And we, of course, with GPT-2, we have to pass it the session that we're using. And we are going to give it a length. So this tells it how many characters we want to write, 400 characters, and we have to give it a destination path. So this is going to be a file that we continually overwrite, that we read out of in order to pick our tweets out. So we're going to write this down into our data, and we're going to say generated tweets.txt. So what that's going to do is every time it generates a new batch of tweets for us to select from, they will always be in that file. And samples, we'll just say 5 because we don't want it to run for too long. And then run name is the topic. So that's going to let it know to use the checkpoint that we just created. And one last bit of trickiness, prefix. And we're also going to give that topic. So what that's going to do, that's going to seed it with the topic that we just, the text of the topic, to see that that will be in at least the first tweet for sure. We want it in as many of the generated tweets as possible because we want to use that topic in the tweet. And so this is a way to help ensure that it's using that as seed text. All right, so the last thing to do here, and because we're going to be looping around on this more than one time, is we need to do a function in GPT-2 to reset our session. We've used it to train new models and generate our tweets, but now we want to reset everything so that when we come back around, the whole thing doesn't break on us. So call reset session and pass the session in. And that should reset everything so that we won't get any errors when it comes back the next time around, tries to start a new one, and goes ahead and trains again. Okay. So at this point in our function, we should have a block of text sitting in that generated tweets file, and we are going to read that in, and we're going to do some filtering on it, and then we're going to randomly pick one tweet out of it and return that tweet from this function, and that's going to be the tweet that we tweet. So we're going to do our filtering right here. So first things first, with open, we need to open that file. I guess I could have saved that to a variable and just passed it, but this is fine. Generated tweets.text. And just like we wrote right before, we just want to read, that's the R, as file. And we're going to say that the texts are the file.read. That'll read everything out. And this is a little bit tricky because I don't have any of the text to show you. I haven't generated any text yet. But all of the text, because we did multiple n samples, it actually breaks up the samples. And the string that it breaks the samples up by is that many equal signs. So this will give us an array of each set of 400 character samples that we generated with our generate to file, and it will cut this text out so that we won't have to deal with those equal signs. So now we're going to loop through that list of texts, and we're going to pick out valid tweets, and we're going to add them onto an array. So let's create an accumulator here and say for text in texts, do our first loop. There's going to be multiple loopies in here. And what we want to do first is, you remember we broke everything up on this string. So we want to do that same thing for each set, and that will give us a list of the tweets in that particular run, in that sample. So we're going to do that by, just so I don't overwrite any other variables, we're going to call that tweeters, because it's nice and fun. And that's going to be this block of text dot split, and we split on that character string that we created. Cool. That will now give us a list of our tweets in tweeters. And so we'll say for tweet in tweeters. So we're going to cycle through that list of tweets for this set of samples. And the first thing we want to validate is the topic in the tweet? So if topic is in tweet, then we can continue. Otherwise, just continue. Otherwise, go to the next tweet. We don't do that. There you go. Otherwise, yeah, go to the next tweet. We don't want to tweet something out that doesn't contain that subject information that we went so laboriously to go ahead and grab off of Twitter. So the next thing we want to do is we're actually going to go ahead and remove the HTTP. We want to remove links from the tweet first, and then we are going to validate that it is not just the subject itself that we got. We don't want, if we got a hashtag, we don't want to just tweet out that hashtag back out as just that. And if we have links in there, those links aren't going to be valid because the text generator is going to put random things in. It's going to put http:// and then random stuff. Okay, so the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to take our tweet and we are going to say that that is going to be our tweet split on spaces. So this will break the tweet up into a list of words that we can then deal with in order to be able to filter out we want to filter out the links is what we were doing. Sorry. So we're going to create a little helper function here to help us out. Called filter links. We're going to pass in each word into this, and we're going to say if word.find HTTP, so if it has a link in it, if it does not have a link in it, return true, otherwise return true, otherwise return false. So we're going to use that as our little helper function here to go through the words in our tweet and make sure that if they have a link, then we're just going to go ahead and get rid of that word. We don't want that word. So the way we're going to write that is going to be keep rewriting over this tweet variable. We're going to join the string back together, and inside the join we're going to write a little inline loop here. So for word in tweet. So we're going through that list, and then if not, filter links word. So that will, if the word does not have a link in it, it'll go ahead and add that and then join it all together into one string with spaces. So we're busting it apart, pulling the link out, and then putting it all back together. Okay, last thing to do is to make sure that if the length of the tweet is greater than the length of the topic, and we'll give it a little bit of padding here to just make sure the length of the topic plus we'll say 4. So that's going to make sure that it's not just like the topic and a couple of spaces or something like that, that it actually has some other words in there, hopefully. Even if it's something silly like go and then the topic, or no and then the topic, it hopefully has a couple more characters than that. So that's why we picked 4. So if it does, we've now validated our tweet and removed all of our links, and we can say tweets.append tweet. Cool. So now we've done all our filtering and added them to our list. We are ready to choose a tweet. So we can reestablish that variable, and we can say choice again, and we just want to pick one from our tweets. So that'll give us the one tweet that it's chosen out of our validated list of tweets. And the last thing to do is to make sure that the length isn't over the 280 character limit. So we're going to say if length of the tweet that we just chose is greater than 280, then we're just going to slice it down. We'll just say tweet equals tweet, and then slice it down to 280 characters. We don't care. If it's a little incoherent, we don't care. I could improve on that. I could improve on a lot of this, but that does indeed work, and that will give us what we want. Return tweet. Cool. No errors. Everything looks good. Alrighty. So now we are ready to do one last little bit of silliness here, which is to write a very, very small function that we are going to call from our name main, and that is going to be a perpetual loop that will do our repetitive calling of the function that we just built. So we're going to call that def run bot. We don't need to pass anything into it, because the only thing we're going to put in here is while true, which will always evaluate to true. The tweet that we want to tweet is going to equal generate trending tweet, and that will return the one tweet. We're going to go ahead and print to the console because we want to see what we're tweeting. I am tweeting and then the last thing to do is to go ahead and send this to the API, send this to the Tweepy API. The way we do that is by calling that API object that we established up top and saying, there it is, update status, and pass it to tweet. Okay. Call run bot so that will run on start. Let's go ahead and run it and see if we get our result. So we trained for our 2 cycles. I had to do some resets there because apparently 100 tweets was not enough, so I had to up it. I upped it to 1,000, and that worked. If we look in our checkpoint folder, we have our Robert Mueller folder. That's what it shows on. Here's all our raw tweets separated by that tweet string that we specified. And then here's our block of generated tweets, some of which are repetitive nonsense. And here they are broken up by that character I told you they'd be broken up by. And then this is what it chose that it thought it was going to tweet out. And let's go ahead and take a look on Twitter and see if it tweeted it. There it is. There's our tweet back up on Twitter. All right, so that's pretty much it for this project. There's a lot of improvements that I could make. I could do better on the validation of the text here. I could have it only tweet on a certain set of subjects instead of fetching them off of Twitter. There's a lot of different directions I could go with this, but I thought it was an interesting project. I thought some other people might get a kick out of the notion of being able to use GPT-2 to generate tweets on trending subjects without having to read a single tweet or do anything. Do it all in code. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments.